So, Derek, John, I woke up this morning and saw that there's apparently an Amazon listing for Skyward Sword on Nintendo Switch. Is that right? I just woke up, so I'm just catching up here.
Seems to be the case. I mean, this is the second time we've had a Skyward Sword on Switch rumor in 2 years-ish, because last time it was like AGI Numa was saying this might happen, and, you know, it's been passed around quite a lot, especially because of Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess HD, so could it happen?
Yeah, so there's no other information in this listing beyond a clearly placeholder release date.
No, it has an ASIN number, it says it's published by Nintendo, that is it.
Okay. So, what do we think about this? Do you think that there's anything to this listing?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, as Derek was saying, in late 2018, AGA and UMA did a concert in Japan, and the people in the concert, the audience, this is like roughly translated as saying, do you guys want to see Skyward Sword HD on Switch? And that was like literally all he said out of context, and no one really knows what he meant by that, or whether he was teasing something, or just like trying to gauge interest. But that was a really weird thing to say, like way back in 2018. So a listing now, that makes a whole lot of sense. Like maybe development for that port maybe started back then and it's finishing up now. So yeah, I can definitely see this coming, especially because Zelda is such an annual franchise now, apart from this year.
Well, I mean, that would be the game for this year, since the last time we got Link's Awakening was our Zelda game, and it's technically a remake.
Cadence, yeah.
And Cadence, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I want to believe this because we've seen these kind of listings before and they've come true in a lot of cases. But I've also looked through the comments of our update video, and a lot of people have mentioned that, we had those Best Buy leaks in the past that showed Link to the Past and Persona 5 on the Switch, and those haven't materialized yet. We have, of course, Metroid Prime 3 rumors for a while. Wasn't there an F-Zero listing as well or something like that? There's a lot of listings that have happened that have just not materialized. So I'm not fully behind all this yet.
So, yeah, I suppose in my case, whether or not this listing means anything, I believe Skyward Sword is coming. But I do think this listing probably has something to it in either case. Because, I mean, we did have that, as you mentioned, the Alan Numa tease a few years ago, and he has teased things before, too. In A Link Between Worlds, there was Majora's Mask tease, which would end up being Majora's Mask 3D, even though he played coy at the time, though he later revealed in hindsight that, yeah, that was a tease for the upcoming game. So I really do expect Skyward Sword to come. It's the only 3D Zelda to not yet be ported to another platform. Now, that partially might be because it's also perhaps most difficult to port given its reliance on the Wii Remote. And I suppose that's the biggest question here: is how exactly are they going to make that work on the Joy-Con, or will they find another solution? Will there be a control stick option, perhaps? So, what do you guys think about this?
That's so tough because the Switch is a hybrid console, and you've got to take into account handheld players too. Like if you're just using the Joy-Con the entire time, that rules out the entirety of Switch Lite players. You can't take it on the go. But can Skyward Sword work in any other way? Like, I really don't think it can. I know a lot of people compare it to like Metal Gear Rising, where you can like freely move the sword around with the right stick, and like that works in certain circumstances. But Skyward Sword's combat revolves entirely around that, and I really don't think that would work very well.
Yeah, it's the key focus. That's where everything comes from. You spin your sword in order to make things dizzy. You have to slash in certain ways because of enemies blocking in those ways. How easy would that be to basically take the right thumbstick and do those motions and have them translate? I guess it's possible, but I think we might end up in a Kid Icarus Uprising situation where, yeah, it's doable, but it's not exactly ideal.
Yeah, well, I think that's going to end up being the case, period, just because of how the controls worked in Skyward Sword. Now, by and large, the Joy-Con and the Wii Remote, along with the Wii Motion Plus, they had the same basic technology, including the gyroscope, so the core control should mostly be okay, but there is one major problem, and that's the fact that the Wii Remote had a sensor bar and the Switch doesn't, which means that on the Switch, your controls will drift over time, meaning that where you hold the sword may not align with where Link is in-game unless you manually reset it, as we've seen in other Joy-Con control games on the Switch. So that by itself is going to be an annoying problem to deal with, and that you're going to have to babysit the controls more often than you did before in order to manually keep recentering them, unless they find another solution, like maybe having you unsheath the sword more often, which would then reset its starting position. But then, yeah, there's a fact that if you want to play this game in handheld mode or on a Switch Lite, you probably don't want to be using the Joy-Cons, particularly since the Switch Lite doesn't come with them. So I do think they would have to add an alternate control means, either with a touchscreen or with the right control stick. And I agree that neither of those would be ideal, but perhaps they can make it so that the game has basically an assistive type function, where as long as you're somewhat in the right direction, it'll smooth it out for you and make sure that you get it in the right spot.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it's not ideal, but it could work. But yeah, as you were saying just now, neither style is ideal, because even if you sold like a sensor bar for the Switch, it wouldn't pick it up, because the IR camera is facing you,
the wrong way.
TV.
Yeah,
yeah, it's the exact wrong way, so it just wouldn't really convey, it wouldn't really sync up very well. And you constantly need to be pointing at the sensor bar. I know this is a Motion Plus style game, but like, when it comes to aiming with the bow, or when it comes to just syncing up your sword, you've got to point at the sensor bar to get that back in sync. And yeah, it would just go all over the place. And certain Switch games have tried to do pointing in the past, like World of Goo or Captain Toad. For Captain Toad, it's in very specific circumstances. It doesn't have to be on screen the entire time. But World of Goo, I played through all of that on Switch, and I was constantly recalibrating, like every couple of seconds, it felt like.
Oh wow.
And it really wouldn't be the ideal way to play. And I don't think any style would really be the ideal way to play this game on Switch.
Yeah, and they can't really just redo the game, you know, and make it different, because that is the entire point of the game. It's to have that motion control, to have those puzzles in there. And I think there's ways to make it work, but I also I don't know if a potential Skyward Sword HD would even be the definitive version at that point.
It'll be compromised in some ways, yeah. Like, they could still pull it off, it could still be really fun, but there's something about the controls that just, I don't think would be quite as good as the original.
Hey, John, I have a question for you. So 70 pounds, how much does that translate to in dollars? Do you know offhand?
That's a lot. So 70 pounds would be, I guess... Well, that's about 20 pounds more than a game usually is. Okay,
I wanted to ask that because here's a question. What's to stop Nintendo from releasing an accessory built, like, packed in with Skyward Sword that basically allows you to have those motion controls on the Switch?
Like, sell us a Wii remote?
Like, sell us a Wii remote, or some sort of Joy-Con that has an IR functionality with it that it's a sensor bar that you can set up for the game. You just plug into the USB, and there you go. You have it for Skyward Sword.
That'd be wild.
It is more, because I thought 70 pounds sounded pretty expensive, but I don't know my exchange rate. So I almost wonder if it might be sold with an accessory.
You know, I guess they could just sell us one right Joy-Con. They don't have to sell us a 2-pack, because they could just be another right Joy-Con with the IR sensor at the top, and then I guess you'd move the triggers elsewhere, because that would be where they would usually go. But that would be way more economically mindful to just give you one Joy-Con rather than like a Wii Remote and a nunchuck, or 2 Joy-Cons, or just something else entirely.
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea. I have a feeling that price is probably a placeholder. I don't think they'd release another accessory here. Although Nintendo's done it before, so it's not impossible. I guess they could also just add Wii Remote support too if they really wanted to, considering those are Bluetooth, so they should work on the Switch. The only problem then is the Wii sensor bar would have nothing to connect to for power. So unless you connected it to a Wii or Wii U that you already have, that wouldn't work either. But yeah, I feel like they would find a software solution to this. So yeah, I hope they find one, because I liked how it worked in Skyward Sword, although people did have their issues with it too. So, yeah, we'll see how that holds up. I want to stress though real quick, I am actually looking forward to this. I did like Skyward Sword. It has issues, but I did enjoy it overall, though I haven't revisited it in the last nearly 10 years at this point. And also, I should mention too that Zelda's 35th anniversary is also coming up next year, which could be part of the reason why around now, or within the next years when it would be released. I thought it was a good-looking game on the Wii. I think it'll be even more so in HD. I think this might be one of the better adaptations for a Zelda game, for a Zelda port. And I also hope that they can take this opportunity to smooth out some of the gameplay issues as well, which I don't know how much they may address, but I'm thinking specifically of Tad Tones.
It can definitely be a better game when the expectations aren't riding so high on it.
Yeah.
Like, now we've had Breath of the Wild, now we've had that big open game. We aren't like necessarily looking for that now. So to have Skyward Sword just be this, like, to let it be itself, to let it be this linear game, I think it can definitely have far more fair expectations on it.
That is such an interesting point. A lot of people were sick of Skyward Sword because it came at the end, what we now know was the end of the conventional 3D Zelda train, and they wanted something new. So, but now, with it coming after Breath of the Wild rather than before, that could completely shift people's perspective on it. Some people are now asking for that classic Zelda experience, and it's so fascinating to me that Breath of the Wild might now be sandwiched by different versions of the same game, being Skyward Sword, with one of them being the HD remake possibly being received better just by virtue of its timing and the fact that the Zelda series has now seen a massive change in how its gameplay works. So, yeah, I just like that.
I mean, it's not unheard of.
That's video games in general.
Yeah.
Everyone always hates on the previous one, and then when it comes out, they love the previous one, and then that's just how every cycle goes. Every Sonic game, every Zelda game, even 3D Mario. People hate Odyssey right now. But I bet in a few years' time, people are just going to look back on Odyssey as a masterpiece, which it is.
One of those things where you're letting people like stew on it for a little bit, and yeah, it's very linear. Yeah, it needs some fixes like the tad tones that you mentioned, Andre. Maybe get rid of one of the imprisoned fights. Heavily cut down on the tutorials. I think that's another thing. That's a pace killer.
They could really fix that, tighten up that intro. I think they won't. They probably won't. They barely did in Twilight Princess, but they could here.
Yeah, Twilight Princess, it shaved a bit off the fishing for the cat, so I guess that's kind of quality of life improvement, but nothing huge. But like Skyward Sword as a whole, is it when you have those lesser moments, but the better moments are so good. Like these are some of the best dungeons in the entire series. I'm thinking about the ancient cistern?
Yeah.
Yes.
The dungeon where it's like this Japanese-themed area on top, and then below is this dungeon, which is super creepy, and has like these zombie bokoblins, and that's just such a great shift between two different dynamics, and it's like, when it comes down to puzzles and design, a lot of these dungeons are some of the most imaginative and intuitive in the entire series.
Yeah, you have the time crystals, where you're exploring two versions of the same dungeon at once. You revisit another dungeon later in the game, and it seems quite a bit different than how it was before. And it has some of the cooler items in this series, including a freaking whip, as well as like the gust bellows, where you can just blow a bunch of sand everywhere. So yeah, there are a lot of high points to Skyward Sword that I think would be looked upon more fondly now that we're divorced from the hype, as you were saying.
And I know a lot of people were upset about the lack of story in Breath of the Wild, and Skyward Sword probably has one of the best Zelda stories in there.
Yeah.
Working as an origin and just probably one of the best versions of Link and Zelda. And, everybody loves Groose. So there's potential here for it to be rediscovered and reappreciated this time around.
Here's what they could do. So lately Nintendo have been adding bonus content to their ports. Like we've got Pikmin 3 Deluxe with the Olimar and Louis campaign. We've got Xenoblade Chronicles with Future Connected. What if we get a Groose epilogue? Actually deliver on the Legend of Groose.
Oh my god. That would be amazing. Well, what would it be? Just like a side story, or like a competition of sorts, since he is kind of like a meathead?
I mean, he is the one that developed the bomb system to fight Demise in that last one, and working together. So maybe you could do a tower defense thing with Groose.
I've never heard tower. Actually, that could be a really fun way to make use of like the sky setting, which is pretty much wasted in the original game. Like if you had to like fly from location to location and build up these different areas in a tower defense type way against these incoming forces.
Yeah, potentially. I don't know.
That'd be amazing.
I don't think we're going to get this extra stuff, but it's like if they had some way to do it and work it into the story itself rather than, or maybe just an extra mode, like, and this is what Groose was up to, you could do that kind of thing.
Yeah, it'd just be nice for this game to get the HD treatment, because this art style is really good. It's really clean. I think it transitioned really well to HD, much like Wind Waker did.
It has that really cool watercolored look.
Yeah, I think it's French Impressionism is the art style, something like that. But yeah, it'd be great to finally have every 3D Zelda game in HD in some form, and hopefully Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess HD will follow for the Switch. But I'm expecting Skyward Sword to be sold on its own, though.
Oh, absolutely. They'll probably all be sold on their own, and probably all at $60. Let's be honest.
Yeah, they're all
this is
the same
Nintendo.
price. Exactly. Were they even cheaper on the Wii U? But I'm pretty sure they will be $60 on the Switch if they get ported.
Yeah.
Are there any other hopes you have for a Skyward Sword port on Switch? What else could they do to make this game better than it was before?
I'm trying to go off of what they did for Twilight Princess and Wind Waker, and there were tiny things here gameplay wise, but nothing that changed the overall structure. It was just sort of tightening up the experience, and that's really all I plan here. Like when we were talking about this before 2 years ago with our last rumor with Aonuma, we were like putting out voice acting and other stuff like that. I was like, no. This is Nintendo. They're going to do it, tighten up the gameplay, try to find a way to make the combat work on the Switch, and maybe get an extra thing like we got with Twilight Princess with the amiibo. But with the amiibo not being a big thing right now, yeah. I doubt that's going to be a thing either. Maybe an extra mode that doesn't require an amiibo. But again, I'm expecting not a lot.
Voice acting would be cool though. I want to hear what Ghirahim sounds like.
That'd be a lot of voice acting, though. Unless they save it for just a cutscene. They probably save it for the cutscenes or something.
Probably, yeah.
I expect hero mode to be unlocked from the get-go, like it has been in the previous ports. I think it'd be cool if they found some way to add more to the sky. There's just not a whole lot to do there. So maybe some kind of bonus content related to it. I don't know, whether it would be like a few new islands with some new shops or regions to explore, or maybe move some heart pieces around to find some up there. I don't know, like just some more interesting content in the sky, but it seems so barren.
Yeah, for sure, that's always the lowest point. Actually, one cool thing for left-handers, if you're playing with two different Joy-Con, you could quite easily just swap which hand your sword is in. Because on the Wii, you've got to basically put the nunchuck in your right hand and then move around using your right hand, which just feels weird for left-handers. But to be able to like control it with your left hand still, but have your sword also be on that hand, I think that would actually work pretty well.
Yeah, I can see that.
I mean, hey, if you're holding two Joy-Cons, why not just let you swap at a moment's notice? Like kind of like how you can shift a gun from between shoulders in Last of Us.
Yeah.
What else? Anything else they can improve here?
It's most just tightening things up. Like this game, it wastes your time a lot, and I don't think they can cut out a lot of it, because a lot of it is integral to the story, like revisiting past areas and going through these little fetch quests. But I would like them to shorten a lot, like those tadpoles we keep mentioning. They've got to like cut those down, much like Twilight Princess HD did.
Yeah.
But yeah, hopefully they can hopefully they can make some actual core refinements rather than just sort of cutting things off. Because that's what they've been doing with the other HD ports. Like, even in Wind Waker HD, the Triforce quest was just kind of shortened, which it didn't really solve the problem. It just made it a bit less tedious.
Right. Yeah, they kind of took the easy way out of just like reducing the number of things to find. Yeah, it's tough. I guess it's a tough balance, right? Because you don't want to change too much because that disrupts what the original game was. But at the same time, there were parts of the original game that just didn't work that great.
Yeah, but this isn't really an old game. It's still pretty modern by Zelda standards. It's
almost 10 years old, John.
Oh, I guess.
10 years
but
old.
It's still relatively modern.
I mean, it's got a lot of modern tropes. I know Breath of the Wild refined a lot.
Yeah, you're right though. I mean, it's what the Zelda template was up until Breath of the Wild. And that's why it had to change. Because people were getting sick of doing the same stuff over and over. You go from one temple to the next, to the one after that. And Breath of the Wild is the one that really shook it up. So that's why I think it's going to be interesting to go back to the last one of the modern Zeldas before Breath of the Wild. And see how this one holds up in retrospect. Perhaps better or worse, depending on your viewpoint of Breath of the Wild. Maybe you're just clamoring for some more classic Zelda gameplay, or maybe its flaws will be even more evident in light of how open Breath of the Wild was.
It's really hard to say what they can change, because, like, yeah, this is a 10-year-old game, but Link's Awakening was, like, 25 years old, and they barely changed anything.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. I think, I expect the bare minimum. Like, a few tightening things here, better graphics, of course, some way to make the controls work, and that's about it.
I expect a Breath of the Wild 2 tease. They did this for, they added teases to some previous games. I already mentioned Link Between Worlds, but they had a tease for Skyward Sword and I think Ocarina of Time 3? No, that was after. Maybe they had a reference to, I guess, Skyward Sword and Ocarina of Time 3D, I think. But they've had references between Zelda games before, yeah. So I feel like there's a chance that they could tease Breath of the Wild 2, assuming this is before its release, which I imagine it would be.
Yeah, the Ocarina of Time 3D one was, it was in Lon Lon Ranch. I think there might have been like some Link artwork or something.
That's right.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, I'm sure they could do something. It'd be cool to sort of maybe even work with Breath of the Wild in some way and have a lot of your items transfer over to that game. Like I think Link's Skyward Sword outfit is already in Breath of the Wild, so that's kind of a weak extra. But having, I don't know, like Add a Loftwing to Breath of the Wild. Like, we able to fly around in
Oh, wow.
the sky of Hyrule. We already got a motorcycle.
Oh, man.
Let's go in the air.
I'd love that, but that'll probably be a Breath of the Wild 2 thing, if anything. I'm down, though. I'm cool with that.
Just change your hang glider to look like a Loftwing.
Yeah, exactly. So are you guys excited for this? Do you actually want to revisit Skyward Sword in HD on a portable platform?
Absolutely. It's in my top 5 Zeldas, so yes.
I always want to revisit this game. I'm just scared to, because I always feel like they're going to release a HD remaster at any moment.
Yeah, that's exactly my fear too. So I'm glad. I hope this is true, because I'm done putting off revisiting on Wii. Even though my concern is I'd get like an hour and I'm like, okay, I see why. I don't really want to play this anymore. So hopefully that doesn't happen with the actual update. So when do you guys actually expect this? Is it coming this year?
I don't think it's coming this year. I can see it coming early next year, though. It's just, I feel like if it were coming this year, we probably would have heard of it by now. I know Link's Awakening didn't have a long lead into its release, but it was definitely longer than this. So, yeah, I'd expect it, maybe hear from it this year, but maybe not get it until early 2021.
Real quick, by that logic, do you not think we're getting anything else from Nintendo this year?
No, I do. I think we're getting 3D World very soon. So, I don't know why I'm drawing the line at Zelda, but I feel like some Wii U ports are maybe have less expectations on them, or are just easier to get out there. But yeah, I feel like this game's just coming early next year rather than anytime soon.
Maybe December at the latest. I do kind of think it'll be coming. If it's a thing, it's going to come this year. If not, then who knows?
Yeah, I on the one hand, I think this year would make sense, but on the other, this Mario Anniversary thing ends up actually being a product that exists. Then that's a lot of ports in a few months of each other, including possibly 3D World. Although I think there's a chance that is really completely separate of that. So that may be the later game than Zelda, for instance. So yeah, if I had to choose, sure, Zelda this year. I mean, this listing appeared. I don't think it. Assuming it's accurate, I don't think it would appear that far in advance of its release. So here's hoping, because I want to play this sooner than later. But then again, next year is Zelda's 35th anniversary, so it would make sense for it to be released then, as part of a Zelda celebration.
God, that makes it feel so old now, because in Skyward Sword at the beginning there's a 25th anniversary logo.
Yeah,
so to have a 35th anniversary logo at the start,
oh my God,
really just show how long it's been.
Yeah, that's crazy. that is nuts. That really, I mean, that's when Gaming Spin got a star too, basically. So, all right. Any final thoughts, everyone?
I just hope it's real.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to revisiting this.
Yeah, I am too. I want to roll some more bombs. That was one of the cooler, less talked about aspects of that game. Rolling bombs.
Yeah, make it return. That should just be the definitive Breath of the Wild 2 feature. Like, that can be the entire trailer. You can roll a bomb now.
Exactly.
Cut to black.
I'll admit, I missed it. So, it'll be good to have. Alright, everyone. I think it's about it for us here. But what do you think about Skyward Sword on Nintendo Switch? What are your expectations for it? Do you think this is real? Are you hoping they'll get rid of the tat tones entirely? Let us know by posting in the comments below. With that, thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you next time with whatever rumor discussion we end up talking about next. If not an official announcement of this game, which, hey, I'm cool with that. So, thanks for watching. We'll catch you later. Bye, everyone.